Hey guys, today we will talk about hanging pawns. This is Master Michel, and in this video we are gonna see what are hanging pawns, when they are good or bad, how to play when we or our opponent has hanging pawns, and also a fantastic example by Garry Kasparov. Keep watching. Hanging pawns are a couple of isolated pawns located on the 4th rank. Notice white doesn't have pawns on B or E files, that's why we say they are a couple of isolated pawns. Typically we can see this structure in queen pawn or English, but also in some other openings it can happen. In general we don't say hanging pawns are good or bad. It depends on the specific position on the board and also on how players can manage the situation with hanging pawns. Typically we are going to say the side with hanging pawns wants to play the middle game, since they have more control and space in the center. Also we can say hanging pawns have a lot of potential, since we are threatening ideas like d5 or c5 very often, so the other side has to be always thinking of this kind of breaks all the time in every move. Besides, very often the side with hanging pawns can think of some kind of attack in the kingside, taking advantage of the center and the space. And finally, another typical idea here are these breaks over f5 or also over a5, trying to create passed pawns in the center and also creating weaknesses in the structure in the sides of the board. The side playing against hanging pawns wants to go to the endgame, where they can focus on the hanging pawns and no worries about any kind of attack in the king side. Also they want to attack very strongly these pawns. Notice they cannot be defended by other pawns, which means white will have to defend with pieces, and this also means black pieces are active and white pieces are passive. And finally, a very common idea to face hanging pawns is to use the advances b5 or e5, and the idea here is going to be to force some inaccurate advance in the wrong moment, creating weaknesses. For example, after some c5, maybe black could be using this square d5, and also after some e5, then if white plays d5, black could be using this weakness on c5. So that's the other plan: force some inappropriate advance e5 or d5 by playing e5 or b5. Now let's see an example. This was played between Kasparov and Portish in 1983. In this position as white, Kasparov played c4, and then Portish traded on d4. He takes d4, and then here we have hanging pawns. In this position, black is playing knight a5, which is a very typical move in this kind of situations, clearing the bishop but also putting pressure on c4. Pause the video if you want to find the move Kasparov is playing. This is a really important move if we want to better understand hanging pawns and how to play when we have this structure. I will say it right now. Kasparov played in this position d5. This is a very typical break when we have hanging pawns. The idea with d5 is to open some lines. Also in this position it's going to be particularly strong because black doesn't have the knight on f6 protecting h7 and blocking the diagonal. So it means that two bishops are going to be extremely strong after this break in this position. In the game, black takes on d5. Also after knight takes c4, white could play queen e4, threatening checkmate, forcing g6. It seems like the attack could be too strong in the next moves, and white should be much better in that line. So it takes d5 is the move Portish played. So it takes d5, bishop takes pawn, then the bishop isn't protected, so Kasparov is playing bishop takes pawn discover, and rook takes bishop. Here Portish goes back to put the king in a safer place, but then there is another fantastic move by Kasparov. If you want to find it, you can pause the video. I will say it right now. The move Kasparov is playing here is bishop takes g7. This is very interesting, very strong. Actually there is not a forced sequence winning after bishop takes g7. However, when we analyze this position, we see black king is very unprotected here in the king side, and white has rook, queen and knight, and also the king is completely discovered, so it seems like the attack could be very strong in the next moves. Kasparov continues here with knight e5, clearing the way for the queen and also putting the knight in a great square, controlling the board. Black plays rook f d8 here, trying to clear the way for the king to escape back. Also, after f5, trying to control g4, white could be winning. I will say it. If you want to pause the video and find it, it's fine. The move white could play in this position was just this fork, rook d7, attacking here and here. And after queen c5, then knight d3, attacking the queen, and now attacking the bishop. This position is winning for white. So after knight e5, it seems like black has to play rook fd8. So after this check, black doesn't have to go to the edge of the board. Now they can go to f8. Kasparov continues here with queen f5, threatening checkmate, and black has to play here f6. Then he's playing knight d7 check, and black has to give the exchange on d7. Also, we want to analyze what could happen after king f7. In this position, white could be playing queen h7 check, and the king has to go up, and then there is this rook e1 check, king takes rook, and then queen e4. So this could be checkmate very soon. After king d6, white can play rook d1, that's mate. Also they can play queen e6, also checkmate. So after this knight d7 check, they have to give the exchange here, and then white can recapture on d7. Black plays queen c5. Of course they want to trade queens because the king is very discovered here. They don't want to play middle game by now, but of course Kasparov wants to keep queens on the board. He's playing here queen h7. Black continues here rook c7, but also there is this nice threat. For example, if black plays here a normal move like knight c4, trying to bring the knight to the center, improving this piece, there is a nice tactics for white winning the game. I will say it right now, but if you want, you can pause the video. The move to win in this position could be this nice rook takes e7. The idea is that after queen takes, then there is skewer over here, and then taking the rook on c8. This position could be winning. That's why Porteous is playing here rook c7, and then Kasparov continues with queen h8, king f7, and one more time we don't want to trade pieces since we can have some attack. So rook d3 is going to be fine. Knight c4, rook d1, improving this rook, not doing anything, and then knight e5, which is probably a mistake. Now white is going to be winning very soon. There is this check, queen h7, and then the king cannot go down because then there will be some ideas with rook d8 or queen g8. So the king has to go up, but then there is another check here on g8. One more time the king has to go up to some even more unsafe territory. For example, after knight f7, white could be playing rook e1 check, and after king f5, rook f3, this is checkmate, I think. So queen g8 check, the king has to go to f5, and then this nice move g4. In the game, Porteous is playing king f4, but after knight takes pawn, there is this rook f3. This is just winning. Also the knight is going to be hanging over here. So g4, black plays king f4, and then rook d4. The king continues to f3, and then queen b3. At this point, Porteous is resigning. He could still try queen c3, but then there is this check on d5, forcing king e2, queen e4 check, and then this is mate in the next. After queen e3, we can capture the queen, or we can also play rook 4 d2, checkmate in both cases. Summing up some of the main ideas of this video: with hanging pawns, try to play the middle game and take advantage of your better center, and playing against hanging pawns, trade some pieces and try to attack very strongly those hanging isolated pawns. The question for today: assuming an equal position, do you prefer to play with or against hanging pawns? Let me know your opinion in the comments. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. Help my channel with some like if it was like that. Subscribe so you get notifications for my next videos. Never stop believing. See you in the next.